This video is made possible by donations to the United States Lighthouse Society from people like you. Well, first of all, for those of you who maybe haven't done these events before, I'm Jeremy D'Entremont. I'm the historian for the U.S. Lighthouse Society and host of the Society's podcast, Lighthearted. And it's my pleasure to host these occasional live Zoom events. Always a lot of fun. I know a lot of you have attended many of them, so it's great to see you all. As usual, this event is being recorded. You probably all saw a notice on your screen. So it's being recorded and will be on YouTube, on the USLHS YouTube channel within a couple of days. So if you miss part of it or you want to tell your friends, I can't say exactly when it'll be up, but it should be by Monday or Tuesday. It'll be on the YouTube channel. And I want to remind you all to please keep your microphones muted throughout the event. There might be a chance on the Q&A where we might ask you to unmute yourself, but generally just please keep your microphones muted. Also, do not try to share your screen. The only person who should be sharing his screen is Jim Lammers tonight. So the rest of you, please hold off on that. And there will be, as I mentioned, there will be a Q&A after Jim finishes his presentation. You can ask questions in the chat. You can type them in while he's speaking, but we'll get to them at the end when he finishes speaking. We'll get to all the questions and comments at that point. So I think that's all the housekeeping I wanted to do off the bat here. And I want to get into our event. So let me tell you that our special guest tonight, Jim Lammers, first contacted me in 2022 when he was working on his book on the lighthouses of the Great Lakes. And then he contacted me again in March 2024 and asked if I could write the foreword to his book. He sent me PDFs of the book, and I could see right away that I like his sketching style and that the book was very nicely put together. You know, I get all kinds of emails, and I wouldn't write the foreword for just anybody's book. So I was impressed and very happy to write the foreword for Jim's book. Jim, you told me at the time in one of the emails why you like to sketch lighthouses. You said, quote, "They capture the moment for me. They're from the heart," unquote. And I think that really comes through in your sketches, as people will see, those who might not be familiar with them. I'm going to introduce you, Jim, I'm going to read the About the Author page from your book, Lighthouses of the Great Lakes, which I just happen to have right here. Okay. All right. About the author, Jim Lammers, FAIA, was educated as an architect back when freehand sketching was an integral part of the curriculum. He holds degrees from Columbia University and Iowa State University. In addition to his private practice, Jim taught in the architecture program at the University of Minnesota for 18 years. He currently teaches travel sketching at Marine Mills Folk Art School in Marine on St. Croix, Minnesota. Marine on St. Croix, Minnesota. I think I got that right.
Yes.
An inveterate world traveler, and I should interject that Jim and I were together for most of the month of June in France on the USLHS France tour. Now there's other people in the room right now who are on that tour. That was an amazing time. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about that a little later. Inveterate world traveler, persistent writer, and relentless sketcher, Jim has been published in a number of professional journals and on websites. His drawings have been exhibited at Landmark Center, Hallberg Center for the Arts, Phipps Art Center, and Art Reach. His books Capture the Moment, An Architect's Guide to Travel Sketching, Barns of the St. Croix Valley, An Architect's Sketchbook, and Lighthouses of the Great Lakes, An Architect's Sketchbook have been published by ORO Editions. Jim's interest in sketching lighthouses began in 2021 when he launched a road trip down the Pacific Coast Highway as an escape from the pandemic. He purchased Jeremy D'Entremont's Lighthouse Handbook West Coast. Chasing those lighthouses gave his trip purpose and resulted in this book. When not absorbed in writing or sketching, Jim enjoys working as an arborist on his 100-year-old farmstead. We were just chatting a little bit about that before the rest of you came in. Maybe we can get back to that before we're done tonight. But Jim, it's a real pleasure to have you here tonight. Thank you for doing this. It's great to see you again. I was thinking about our France trip and remembering the evening we kind of wandered aimlessly around Biarritz. That was fun. But it's good to see you. So are you about ready to do your presentation for us?
I am ready.
Excellent. Okay, so whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and click share. Go ahead and share your screen.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
We're getting closer.
Okay, there you go.
And one more button.
Yeah.
There.
Yep. Excellent. Perfect.
There we are. Well, first of all, Jeremy, I want to thank you for setting this all up because it's always fun to share sketches and talk about adventures. So this is the kind of the outline. We'll look at some sketches from the West Coast. We'll do some background on some of the parts of lighthouses and things like that. Then we'll run through the Great Lakes up to, in my slides, I have an intermission. And if we have enough time, then we can go to the Gulf of Mexico and the East Coast and across the big water. So as Jeremy mentioned, this was the start of my interest in lighthouses. I bought this book and used it on my road trip. I took a road trip from the Twin Cities to Seattle and then down the coast and back to the Twin Cities using this book much of the way. So here's some sketches from the West Coast. Alki Point, Jeremy, help me, is that the way you pronounce that?
Strangely enough, out there they pronounce it Alki.
Alki Point.
Yeah.
Washington, south. I think it's in West Seattle.
Yep.
And along the road, there are quarters for the Coast Guard, and they lead tours there, but not on the day I was there. So I walked through the neighbor's yard and then sat on the riprap sketching as the tide was coming in and my feet were getting wet. But it's a beautiful lighthouse. Cape Meares in Oregon has the honor of being the shortest lighthouse in Oregon. And Cape Mendocino, well, my story about Cape Mendocino is that I took the Wildcat Road from Florence, California to Petrolia, California. It was really a logging road, and it's out on the ocean side of, what is that highway that runs down? 101, I think, maybe?
Yes.
Where there's no cell service. So, I don't get the benefit of Google Maps. And I got to Petrolia, and there was a person delivering the mail, and I asked her, well, how do I get to this lighthouse? And she told me what road to take, and I said, well, is that going to be better or worse than the Wildcat Road? And she said, it will make the Wildcat Road seem like an angel. And it was true. It got worse and worse, but I finally got there. Lighthouse parts, you all understand these, and the focal plane to the water is a critical dimension. The light is in the lantern room. Below the lantern room is oftentimes a watch room with windows so that the keeper can sit there and watch for ships in distress. But sometimes it's a service room filled with oil or some fuel that once was used to light the light. And this is a kind of reiteration of that. So lightning rod on top, and there's usually a ball. Sometimes there's a weather vane. Usually there's a ball vent and a condensate dish, and that all has to do with burning of fuel where vapors had to go up there. There were vents in the side of in the framing of the windows in uh, the lantern room in order to let the air in so that the flame would burn, and then the exhaust went up through the ball vent. Complicated thing. The pedestal that the light sits on, there's a Fresnel lens shown here, and not in great detail, but just an outline. It sits on a pedestal, which sits in the old days on a bed of mercury, and it was turned around by the lighthouse keeper, who would wind up that handle where it says clockwork and pull up the weight on the chain, which went down a tube in the center of the lighthouse. Complicated things. And this is the Fresnel lens, which is a French name, of course, so it's not pronounced anything like it's written. I love French. But what we have here are prisms of a couple different kinds, depending upon where they're sitting. And the prisms reorient the light. So instead of going off in all directions, the light goes just horizontally. And in the center, there's a convex prism that's a bullseye. So every time the bullseye rotates around, there's a big flash of light. There are various styles of lighthouses. I made up some of my own here. These are pretty self-evident. The vase style I like to remark about because it's a gentle curve of the tower, whether it's a polygonal lighthouse or a pole lighthouse, which is just part of a cylinder. The vase is a nice touch, probably by the architect who designed it. There's some forerunners I want to talk about briefly. The king of lighthouses is Pharos, which was built almost 300 years before the current era. 300 feet tall. It withstood the attacks by Julius Caesar's armies and was finally put down by an earthquake or a series of earthquakes, I think. There are no drawings for it anymore. The base remains in Alexandria, Egypt, and the rest of it is underwater, so probably you can dive to see it. Eddystone is a famous lighthouse in England. The first, or I think it's probably the second one, you can see the stump of the second one, and then the final one in 1709. Boston Harbor is the first American lighthouse. And let's go on with this. Sandy Hook is the oldest still operational lighthouse dating from 1764. Marblehead is the first on Lake Erie. And it's not really the first. It's the first in the United States side of Lake Erie, but on the Ontario side, the Mississauga, it was the first Mississauga was taken down to make room for a fort, so it is not with us anymore. And then just briefly talking about range lights. So the two sketches here, the Mucinening Front Range light in Michigan on Lake Superior sits right next to the VFW, and I sketched it from their parking lot. Everybody else on a Friday night was going in to get a beer, but I was busy sketching. And then across the highway and up the hill is the rear range light, which is a cute little thing. It's a little steep, so I didn't get all the way up to it. On the right-hand side, you see pictures of Wilson Channel, Ontario. The Canadians have different terminology. They call them outer lights and inner lights. We call them front range and rear range. So we're going to talk about and show sketches of lighthouses and also aids to navigation, or ATONs, as they're sometimes known. And occasionally I come across a license plate in the parking lot at a lighthouse, and ATON is part of the license plate. But these include buoys and all other sorts of things. Sometimes they're called a lighthouse. There's a kind of fine line between a lighthouse and an aid to navigation. Lighthouse is an aid to navigation, but I tend to call them all lighthouses. So the Great Lakes have 336 lighthouses, 190 of them are on land. And those are the ones that I sketched. So here's a picture of Lake Superior, and we're going to start at the top at Porphyry Point, which is in Canada, a little ways north of little ways north of Thunder Bay, sorry. So here's Porphyry Point. The great thing about doing a sketch is that you can make the sketch bright and sunny, even though when I sketched this, I was taking shelter in the oil house, and it was raining cats and dogs. In a photograph, you can't really do that. I stayed at Two Harbors, which is reportedly haunted. A lot of lighthouses are haunted. And so I stayed there, and I had no ghostly interference. When I was back home, I wrote a story about this and shared it with the Osceola Writers Group. And one of the people, I think maybe Grace, said, well, when my husband and I were there all night long, there were doors slamming and pipes clanging and water being turned on and off. So maybe it's only haunted for certain people. I don't know. I live actually in a haunted old farmhouse, so I'm somewhat of an authority on haunting. Duluth Harbor, North Breakwater, this is in the process of being transferred to a nonprofit, so it can be restored. And Grand Marais, which is up the shoreline a little bit, sits on the breakwater, and it's I don't know what style you would call this because it's actually pyramidal, but it sits on a skeleton frame, so it's maybe a combination of things. Split Rock is the most famous lighthouse in Minnesota, and perhaps on the lakes. A large number of visitors. It's not a tall lighthouse, but it sits on top of a bluff that's 130 feet in the air, so it gets a lot of coverage. It was put into action in, let me look at my notes here, in 1910 and taken out of service in 1969. Beautiful lighthouse. The building adjacent to it is the service room. And in the middle sketch, you can see that red roof. I always like to put red roofs in my sketches, but that's actually the fog signal building, which sits behind it from this view. Raspberry Island is in the Apostle Islands. I saw it by boat, and it's a lovely lighthouse. It's been pretty much restored. Big Bay Point is an interesting place. Some of you may remember the movie or the book Anatomy of a Murder. This is where it took place, in the Big Bay Lighthouse Tavern. And the story is that the Army was stationed up here in the early 1950s to take a look out for Russian missiles that might have been sent over the North Pole and across Canada to blow us up. So the Army was there. The wife of a lieutenant claimed that she had been raped by the owner of the lumberjack bar. And so the lieutenant took his service revolver and marched over to the bar and shot the lighthouse, or the tavern keeper, dead. And he was defended by a local attorney who got him off on the basis of temporary insanity, I think it's called. And so the attorney who got him off went back home, wrote a book. In the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, a lot of people have two jobs. So he wrote a book about this that was on the bestseller list for a long time, Anatomy of a Murder. It eventually got made into a movie. Otto Preminger picked it up, and Jimmy Stewart was in it. In fact, I think I'm going to watch it tonight because I bought a copy of it when I was there. Interesting story, but in the interest of time, I'm going to move on. Eagle River, Michigan sits out on a peninsula into Lake Superior. You notice that part of the lighthouse is painted white, and that's because that's the side facing the lake, and the other side is filled up with white pine. And so to make a contrast between the lighthouse and the background, it was painted white. Sand Hills, Michigan is it's a little hard to find, and I finally got to it, and I discovered there was a gate and a no trespassing sign. So I didn't see anybody around, so I kind of trespassed a little bit and made this sketch. It used to be, for a long time, it was a bed and breakfast, and the wife of the keeper of the bed and breakfast would make pastries for breakfast and also play the piano for the entertainment of the guests. Would have been fun to live back then. Mucinening Front Range we've seen, and we're going to jump to Whitefish Point, which is significant because this is a point, if you're coming from the west on the lake, you can duck into Whitefish Bay and escape the winds. So we're going to take a brief sidebar for a minute and talk about shipwrecks. The Edmund Fitzgerald was sank in, I think, 1975. And Gordon Lightfoot wrote a song about that, which we've all heard several times and kind of made that famous. The ship was 629 feet long, I think. No, 729 feet long. It was 1 foot shorter than the locks at Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. And it sank because of a serious storm, but also because the hatches were not securely fastened and let water into the hold. And that's a story. Le Griffin was the first ship to sink on the Great Lakes. It was in the 1600s, and it went out to find the Northwest Passage, which it didn't ever do, and it didn't ever return back to port either. There have been on the Great Lakes about 1,000 shipwrecks and about 30,000 drownings. The Great Lakes are a lot safer now. I'll put this back up so you can see where Whitefish Point is and the bay to the right of that. On my screen, I have a bunch of photographs here. Oh, I can move them over to the other side. Look at that. So moving on to Lake Michigan, we're going to start at the top at Sul Choi, which was designed by Poe. Poe was the chief engineer for the Upper Great Lakes District of the Lighthouse Board. He was,
Jim, excuse me, Jim. I'm just going to be rude and interrupt you for a second. I
sure,
never knew how to pronounce the name of that place until I visited there a couple of years ago, and I believe they pronounce it like Szechuan. If anybody here wants to correct me, please do. But strangely enough, I think that's how they pronounce it there, Szechuan.
Schwa. Well, I stand
Szechuan.
corrected. My French is not very good. All
Well,
I
it's
know
not
how to
really,
say is,
it's not strictly a French pronunciation, but they kind of say Szechuan.
oh, because it's a local pronunciation
Yeah, pretty much.
of
Yeah,
the French.
yeah.
Well, the lighthouse itself is kind of boring, but their sort of eyebrow uh, gable ends of the house. So Poe had some fun with that. His name was Orlando Metcalf Poe. He was an engineer during the Civil War. Cana Island, Wisconsin is on the Door County Peninsula. A fun place to visit because you get to ride in a trailer pulled by a John Deere tractor. And if you have a John Deere tractor yourself, you can compare notes with the guy driving the tractor. It's steel plate. It's a tall lighthouse, 89 feet. And I made it in the sketch probably a little taller than it really was. Kenosha, Wisconsin has a vase-shaped lighthouse. And when I was there, there was a fellow sitting on the grass, cross-legged, and his bicycle was nearby. And so I didn't want to disturb him, so I sat a ways back and started sketching, and then he got up and left. I don't know if it's because of me or because he was just done sitting there thinking. Racine North Breakwater Light, wonderful. I was there in the late afternoon, so the sun was shining on it. It was scheduled for demolition by the Coast Guard, but saved by the city of Racine. And Manistee North Pier light. The first light was put up in 1870, and it burned down in 1871. A lot of fires in 1871, including the Chicago fire and the Peshtigo fire a ways inland. Michigan City, East Pierhead Light, a couple things. One is you can see kind of the outline of an elevated walkway that gets you to the lighthouse in the wintertime or when it's raining, because nobody wants to lose anybody falling off into the water. And so that was pretty safe. The other interesting thing is that Michigan City is actually in Indiana. Indiana has a short stretch of shoreline along Lake Michigan, and the story is that the politics involved had to do with giving the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to Michigan rather than the logical place, which would have been Wisconsin. This is what the outer St. Joseph pier light looks like in a storm, and then after everything has frozen. Hence the need for that upper walkway. Point Betsy I like because it has a gambrel roof, like all the barns that I sketched for my barn book, and you don't see a lot of lighthouses with a gambrel roof. A little hard to sketch because of all the vegetation surrounding it, but possible. McGulpin Point is a beautiful little lighthouse. Well, I shouldn't say little, but very nicely detailed. It's kind of like an elegant house that just happens to have a lighthouse attached to it. I want to say a couple of words about tenders. Tenders were the ships that brought food and material to the lighthouses. If you can imagine, 300 lighthouses scattered around the Great Lakes, and some of them could grow food. They may have had gardens. Others didn't and needed to have food brought in, especially if the lighthouse keeper was out on an island or on a rock, for instance. So they brought school children back and forth to go to school if they went to the mainland for school. They brought midwives as necessary, and they brought the lighthouse keeper's pay, and on occasion they brought the lighthouse inspector. So that visit was never really looked forward to because some of the inspectors put on their white gloves and checked for dust, even in the keeper's residence. So they were not very pleasant to have around. Lake Ontario, we're still in the state of Michigan, but we're going to go down the left side. And old Mackinac Point, again, the local pronunciation is Mackinac, not Mackinac. A wonderfully detailed brick building with a lighthouse attached. Sheboygan Front Range Light is where I met Sherry Nelson, who's on the board of the Great Lakes Lighthouse Keepers Association. She was out tending a garden, so I helped her put the peat moss on the garden, and she gave me a tour of the lighthouse, even though it wasn't open on this particular day. A nice, very nice building. New Presque Isle. Presque Isle means almost an island in French, I understand. And here's one in Michigan. The Front Range uh, light I came across by accident, and then I discovered it was designed by our friend Orlando Poe, who did those boring tall lighthouses. And this was not very large because it was front range light, didn't need to be very tall, but I was going to say cute looking building, but that's not a good term to apply to buildings. How about exquisite? That'd be better, I think. And uh, Port Sanilac, not Similac, Sanilac, Michigan. Very Dutch treatment of that roof line. I haven't seen that on any other lighthouses, any place. The white building to the right is was added on. This is privately owned, so it sits just along a street in between other houses. And now we're on the Canadian side. Uh, the lighthouses in Ontario tended to all look alike, not quite all, but many of them had this um, pyramidal shape, and they were about the same size. South Weymouth Outer was in you might say a park, so we could walk through a trail to get to it. The inner lighthouse was up in the woods and pretty hard to see, sort of in somebody's backyard, in fact. Kincardine, uh, this is a different lighthouse. You might call it a cottage-style lighthouse, maybe. It was named after the 12th Earl of Kincardine. A lot of Scottish history in this part of Canada. The Thames River just sits there across the river from a marina, a small marina. The Grosse Isle Front Range Light is in Detroit, and the only way to get to it is walk across private property, 4 or 5 people's lawns. And when I got there was someone out on the out banging on the door. He must have been fixing it or locking it or something like that. And I thought he was going to come over and kick me out, but he didn't. I didn't say anything to him. He didn't say anything to me. So it was a good day. Well, let's talk for a minute about lighthouse keepers. Generally, keepers were men. Occasionally, a keeper's wife would take over, or daughter. And in part, the reason for that was that there was no pension for lighthouse keepers or their survivors. So if the lighthouse board didn't give the wife the job, she would likely be destitute. So Ida Wally, known as Ida Lewis at the Lime Rock Lighthouse, Newport, Rhode Island, was famous for her life-saving adventures. Her father had taught her how to row a boat, and she went out on several different occasions and saved a total of 18 people from drowning. Jeremy, I think the name of this has been changed to the Ida Wally Lewis Lighthouse. Is that right?
Uh, After she died, they changed the name of the lighthouse to the Ida Lewis Light, but in more recent years, it's become the Ida Lewis Yacht Club.
Aha.
Yeah. So it's got
Well,
all kinds of additions on it with the yacht club, but still, they still light it up, light the light in memory of her.
yes. Well, on the trip to France, I won the lottery and got a little uh, seagull, which I named Ida in honor of Ida Lewis, and she's sitting right next to me. You can see her. Ida, say hello. She's she's quite shy, so uh, she doesn't want to talk very much. And even if she did, you probably couldn't understand her. We're now getting down to the the lower lakes, which are much smaller and lower. And we'll start with Port Stanley, concrete lighthouse painted white, a nice sculptural kind of thing. Port Burwell, Ontario, is the largest still standing wooden lighthouse in Ontario, maybe all of Canada for that matter. It has guy wires down to the ground that help hold it up in case of a high wind. It's part of a museum area, and I made the sketch, and then I was sitting on the sidewalk in front of a house, and the woman from the house came out and asked me if I would uh, make another sketch with her in the sketch, and I told her that I couldn't, and then and then I got off of her sidewalk. Barcelona Lighthouse is in New York. It sits right beside the road. It is interesting because it was first lit using natural gas for the fuel. And not only natural gas, but the natural gas was delivered in wooden pipes. I think it's still lit with natural gas. It's not a lighthouse anymore, but it is something. And Jeremy says, yes, what?
I was just there like last week,
Oh my
and
gosh.
yeah, it's open to the public. I think it had. I think this is the first year it's been open for climbing to the public. It's got a light, and it's made to look like a gas light, but it's not an official light, and I don't think it's actually gas. But they make it look like an old gas light.
I don't think, is there glass around the light or is it just open?
There is glass.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, yeah. They've done a nice job there. It's really, really nice to visit.
Yeah. And behind it is the keeper's house.
Right. Yep. There's a little museum in there. I also went to these other lighthouses they're showing here on my trip a couple of weeks ago. So, what
Oh,
people should listen to the podcast for episodes that relate to these lighthouses. So,
all right. Well, Presque Isle, another almost an island. This is such a geometrically interesting building. The white building on the right is newer, and the brick building in the background is original. Fairport Harbor uh, is a great place because right across from the lighthouse was a ice cream parlor. I think maybe it was a restaurant. Anyway, I had a soda and sketched the light at the same time. So how convenient can you get? The lighthouse, this became a museum, I think the first museum on the Great Lakes in 1945. And I think that's the date of the lighthouse, if I'm not mistaken. I may be mistaken. So, Jeremy, jump in if you have better information.
I'm not sure I remember the dates off the top of my head, but I believe it's the oldest lighthouse museum. It's one of the oldest lighthouse museums anywhere. Um, but I think it is the oldest lighthouse museum on the Great Lakes.
Yeah,
Um,
1945 was the date. That I remember. But we're going to take another little side trip and talk about the life-saving service. This was an independent service that ran kind of parallel to the Lighthouse Board. And the life-saving service built buildings along the lakes, and they stored boats inside of the building, and they sat on rails. They sat on a carriage that sat on rails that would launch them down to the water quickly. They had a observation room at the top, which kind of makes them look like a lighthouse. When I first in Kewanee, I sketched a lighthouse, and then this interesting building popped up, and so I sketched it as well. At the time, I didn't know actually what it was. I think life-saving service was discontinued about the time the Coast Guard took over the lighthouse service.
Could I interject there?
Yeah.
Yeah, the life-saving service merged with the revenue cutter service in 1915, I believe it was. And that's when the Coast Guard was born officially. Those two services combined to form the Coast Guard. And then in 1939, the Coast Guard took over management of lighthouses as well.
Uh-huh.
So
Yes.
life-saving service continued in the form of the Coast Guard, basically.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that all that merging that went on in 39 saved a lot of money, and it was timely because the Second World War was brewing in Europe. Lake Ontario, we'll look at a couple things. Burlington Canal, nice lighthouse. It just sits there, not designed by Poe because it's in Ontario, not the US, but similar style. It sits there by a bridge and some industrial buildings, uh, unassuming. Cobourg East Pierhead, uh, that's a kind of a Art Deco shaped lighthouse, sits out there on the end of the pier. And you can see another drum style lighthouse or aid to navigation on the other pier. Presque Isle Point, which is spelled differently than the other Presque Isles for some reason, is in a state park and very difficult to sketch because there are trees all around it. So I had to sit on a log almost out in the water to sketch it. The lantern room has been removed, unfortunately. Selkirk, New York, the city of Selkirk. The lighthouse is named the Selkirk Lighthouse, named after the fifth Earl of Selkirk, another famous person. It's privately owned, and you can rent it out for as a bed and breakfast, I think, or for weddings and things like that. 30 Mile Point is 30 miles east of Niagara. Sometimes it's hard to name things, so anything goes. We are at admission point. How are we doing time-wise?
Let's see, it's 7:48. Uh, Maybe a little bit more, but we
Okay,
want to be sure we have time for Q&A. So,
I'll be
uh,
really quick here.
okay.
Let's see, I have to move that out of the way. New Canal, Louisiana. The canal was put in between Lake Pontchartrain and downtown um, New Orleans, and this wonderful lighthouse was put up. It's now a museum. Biloxi, Mississippi is of interest because the lighthouse keeper was. Let me find it. My notes. Maria Youngins was lighthouse keeper here for 53 years. Pensacola is a tall lighthouse. Um, It survived lightning strikes, earthquakes, and hurricanes, and it's still there. But it's in um, a military base, and you can't come in unless you're part of the military. Tybee Island, a beautiful lighthouse, nice vase-shaped. Sullivan's Island, designed by a 25-year-old architect, and it has an elevator in it, which I think is probably the only lighthouse that has an elevator in it in the States. Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, 193 feet tall. It is the tallest lighthouse in the United States and the 19th tallest in the world. It was recently moved, not an easy feat. Old Comfort Point, Virginia, this was a comfortable place. I sat in the car and had lunch, took a nap, and then sketched the lighthouse. Point Lookout, this was located at a prison camp during the Civil War. And there are all kinds of ghosts here. Paranormal studies have been made, and psychologists have found 24 different voices recorded here. Scary place if you don't like ghosts. Fenwick Island, Delaware, that has a bird cage at the top. It's not a bird cage light or lantern room like we sometimes see, but it's a bird cage to actually keep the birds from running into it. Hereford Inlet, such a pretty place. Carpenter Gothic. Staten Island just sits there between mansions on either side, one of which was the keeper's house. Stratford Point, Connecticut. I just love this composition. Not a tall lighthouse, but a nice red band. Beaver Tail, of course, that's where foghorns were first tested. Cape Elizabeth, you just see both of these lighthouses in a residential street. Very pretty. Edward Hopper did a painting, and he looks like he ran out of canvas at the top. Eastern Point, Maine, there was a car that pulled into a parking lot behind me with Delaware plates, and I remarked to them that yes, they are right. Delaware has the best crab cakes. And they said, well, this is a rental car and we're from California. So you never know what you pick up cues on. Colchester Reef in New Hampshire was on Lake Champlain. It was taken apart piece by piece and moved into the museum.
In Vermont, Jim.
Oh,
Colchester,
Vermont.
yeah, it's in Colchester, Vermont. Yeah. The
Well, it's easy to
Shelburne Museum.
transpose
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, you just turn New
Become,
Hampshire upside down, it becomes
yeah, I
Vermont. So
become dyslectic in terms of the names
it's okay.
of, um, of states. So we're now jumping across the big water. Lewin, the hat I just took off is the hat I bought at Lewin Lighthouse. Hard to see what it says there, but that's at the very southwest corner of Australia, where the Pacific meets the Australian Bight. Echo Bay, this is somebody had fun building this lighthouse at what used to be Piers Echo Bay. Nakahovid, Denmark marks the strait between Denmark and Sweden. Castillo de los Tres Reyes in Havana. I sketched this. I wasn't sketching lighthouses then, but it showed up in my sketch. Castle of the Three Kings, I believe. Cordovan, I was there with Jeremy, and I actually walked to the top of Cordovan. For the most part, I didn't climb the lighthouses like everybody else did. I just made sketches of them. Beautiful lighthouse with a chapel inside. And Cardamil, Greece, I couldn't find any lighthouses in Greece, so I sketched this, which is not really a lighthouse. It's an aid to navigation powered by a solar panel you can see up at the top. And Akora, New Zealand, looks a lot like the lighthouses in on the coast of Lake Huron. And we're getting to the end here. Gali, Sri Lanka. I wasn't sketching lighthouses, but I sketched this one because it showed up and wanted to be sketched. And Nar is in Gotland, Sweden. Gotland is a large island off the coast of Sweden, where I made my cousins help me find lighthouses so I could sketch them. And that brings us to questions. So don't all speak at once. Oh, I've lost my
I'm
sound.
sorry, I'm babbling here and I have myself muted. So
Oh, I thought I did something,
yeah,
but
no, totally my bad. I was suggesting you come out of screen sharing and we can do the Q&A.
I can stop sharing by pushing that button there. Oh, look at
Okay.
all those faces.
Yeah, yeah. When I'm in your position, Jim, and I'm doing a presentation, I'm always relieved to come out of screen sharing and see that there are still people there, and that they're and that they're mostly awake. So, that's
Yes,
definitely the case here. But again,
some
I've
of them
experienced.
have hidden their image, so we don't know if they're here or taking a nap, but
Well, that's true.
other people we can see.
Yeah, they could put like a video loop on or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm always relieved at that myself. So there's a couple questions in the chat. Marcy Watts was commenting on some of the lighthouses you were showing. She talked about Biloxi. I think down there they kind of say Biloxi.
They
She
do
says,
say it that way.
okay,
The
thank
the
you. Yeah,
screen behind me is actually the beach across from Treasure Bay Casino. So,
okay.
and
Oh,
I'll be there
yes.
in a week.
Uh-huh.
Ah,
You said you mentioned it.
Biloxi, not Biloxi.
Biloxi. Hmm.
Yeah,
Biloxi.
it's between two lanes of the highway, as you said.
All
Yeah.
right.
And Marcy, you asked, are all these in a book or somewhere we can get them? Love these sketches. Well, the Great Lakes one are in the book, but Jim, so far the
Ta-da.
other lighthouse sketches you were showing have not been in a book yet, right?
Well, they're mostly in this book, with the exception of Cordovan.
Is
Right.
Biloxi
Well,
in there? Because I love that one, and that one really touches me, obviously.
Biloxi is there. There are two lighthouses in Biloxi. One is out
Yes,
on the pier, and it
oh,
used to
that's
be
right.
and one's at Deer
whatever
Island.
That's right. Of course.
entertainment
Yeah.
thing out there. It was confusing to me because I saw that one first, and then I saw the other one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you do. So, yeah, in the Great Lakes book, it's not strictly Great Lakes. You do have the section
Oh,
towards the
okay.
end of various other places as well.
Cool.
Um,
I got to get that.
yeah. Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Well, I figured as long as I'm doing a book, I might as well put in all my sketches, so I did.
Sure. Well, but of course, France was too late. So you got to,
France, my story about the trip to France will be up on my website shortly. My granddaughter is putting it up there. She is my IT person.
great. What is your website, Jim?
JimSketcher.com.
JimSketcher.com. Not Sketchers like the shoes, but Sketcher with a T in it. JimSketcher.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um, well, a few questions are coming in here. Let me back up here. Laura asked, is the focal height always the same? I'm not quite sure what she means by that. No, the answer would be no. I mean, lighthouses are various. Oh, I'm not quite sure I understand the question, actually.
The,
Of course,
the
the focal
focal
height
height
would,
you said was from the light down to the water. So there's
right,
varying heights of lighthouses. So I'm curious whether it's from a horizon perspective, and so the light needs to be at a certain focal height, and they build the structure to get the light the same distance above water line.
Well, they're
No,
all at different distances.
yeah, it depends on how far they want the light to be, wanted the light to be seen, how important it was basically. So the higher the light, it's going to increase the visibility. So yeah, the focal height is always from the mean high water to the center of the lens. But those would vary a lot again, depending on how tall the lighthouse is. But maybe I'm not understanding the question, but I hope that might answer. Uh, Julie asks, what materials do you use for your sketches, Jim?
Oh, I use a small 5-inch by 7-inch sketch pad,
Mm-hmm.
and I use a micron pen. So I kind of put the outline of things down in pencil, and then I go over them in pen to correct the pencil. And then I use Prismacolor pencils to color them in, like we used to do in kindergarten. That's the most fun part.
Yeah, it looks like you're wearing your Sketcher jacket right now, Jim. And I remember in France, it was neat seeing you when you go into action. You actually keep them in pockets inside the jacket,
Oh,
like
yes.
like somebody might be selling watches on the streets of New York City or something. Because instead of watches for sale, you have the pencils in your pockets in there.
Yes, pencils and sketchbook and Ida was in my pocket
Uh-huh. Right.
for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah. I should mention, it was fate that you won Ida in the raffle because I donated Ida to the raffle. I picked her up at one of the gift shops at a lighthouse and donated her to the raffle, and it was perfect that you won her and carried her around for the rest of the trip.
Yeah.
That was great. Let's see. Chris says, hello, everyone. Jim, I enjoyed your sketches. I'm a former Coast Guardsman at St. Joseph, Michigan Coast Guard Station. I was responsible for some maintenance of the lighthouse at St. Joseph. Where can we purchase your book? That's a good question.
Well, you can purchase it from Amazon because they have everything.
Yeah.
Or probably your local bookstore would order it for you.
Mm-hmm. Probably barnesandnoble.com too, if people use that.
I
Usually,
think so.
yeah, most of the same books are available in both places. Um, Phyllis says, I'll be traveling to Scotland in 2026. Does anyone know if there's a book of lighthouses for Scotland? Well, yes, there are.
Yes.
There's a number of books about lighthouses in Scotland. Um,
And they're in English.
and yes, they are. There's a man named Michael Strachan who is the historian for the Museum of Scottish Lighthouses, and he's written several books on Scottish lighthouses. And I think if you look up his books, um, I'm trying to think of his name. I think it's Strahan or is it Chan? It's pronounced Strachan, um, but if you search Google for lighthouses of Scotland, I think you'll see his books. But there's a number of good books, and there's also the Lighthouse Stevensons, which isn't exactly a travel book, but it's about the family, the famous family of Scottish lighthouse engineers, the Stevensons, related to Robert Louis Stevenson, of course. But that's a great book to read. Not really a guidebook, but I recommend it. Okay, Keith asks, are the sketches all a plein air, or do you use? Whoop, no, somebody else asked a question, so it skipped up for me. Let me go back here. Or do you use photo reference? What tools or tools/medium do you work in? Well, I think that's been answered. Do you use watercolor? You never do watercolors,
I
right?
don't use watercolor, and the fun part for me is doing the sketch, and I'll take a picture of the lighthouse because maybe when I'm back home I want to touch up the sketch, but I don't use the picture to make the sketch.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
these quirky little freehand drawings are what I do for fun.
Yeah, yeah. And they are fun. Dennis asks, do you have any plans to see Southern Florida, specifically the dry Tortugas.
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm working on a road trip down in the winter sometime, and I'm going to visit a classmate of mine south of Tampa, and then go around. Now the dry Tortugas, they're a ways off the coast, so I don't know if I'll get there or not, but I will get to the lighthouses that are on the shore, and I want to go out to Key West.
Yeah, you have to take boat from Key West to get to the dry Tortugas, I believe. I was supposed to do that one time, but a hurricane canceled that, so didn't quite get there.
Oh,
Yeah. Chris also asks, Jim, did you get a chance to visit the lighthouse on Anacapa Island in California? I've been there. The Channel
oh,
Islands are quite beautiful.
I visited the lighthouse. What's the other island that people go to?
Oh, Catalina?
Catalina. Yeah, I went out to Catalina. There's a lighthouse out there. It's not really a lighthouse. It belongs to the yacht club.
Uh-huh.
But everybody likes to have a lighthouse, so I
Sure.
sketched it.
We can call it a lighthouse, sure.
Yeah.
But Anacapa Island, the lighthouse isn't that spectacular, but the island is spectacular, the Channel Islands in general. I had a great time visiting
How
there.
do I get to it from?
To get to, there's ferries from a couple of different places. I took it from Oxnard, California, to Anacapa.
Ah,
Yeah, if you're in that area, do it. It's incredibly spectacular out there. Yeah. Tons of sea lions. Lots and lots of sea lions around there. I think those are all the questions that have come in the chat, unless I missed anything. So, yeah. So if anybody else has any questions or comments, please enter them in the chat now. So Jim, you've kind of said a little bit about it, but any other plans coming up? Travel plans and or book plans?
well, I don't know about book plans. I'm probably booked out now, but I'm hoping to go to Florida this winter. I'm hoping to go to Japan next September, and then the Lighthouse Society is having a international tour of Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil. So I talked to Cassandra about that, and she said, well, it's going to be in late October or early November. So I'm looking forward to getting the announcement of when and so forth.
No, that's really exciting. I don't think I'll be going on that. I would love to, but that sounds super exciting. Cassandra Rowland, part of the famous Rowland family that's been involved with running tours for the society for a number of years. So
I see so Dennis De Stefano has some wonderful pictures hanging on his wall of drawings of lighthouses.
Let me go to my gallery view here. Let's see, where's Dennis?
Yeah, hard to see, but they look nice.
Huh. I'm not seeing Dennis in my gallery view. I see a lot of people whose cameras are turned off, but anyway. Yeah. So, Jim, thank you so much. This is great. You know what? I love your work, and I miss our drinks and dinners and things in France. We'll have to do something like that again sometime. But,
Yeah, well, think about the Argentina tour. So,
stranger things have happened. I would absolutely love to do that. It could happen.
Yeah.
So again, thank you so much, Jim. And I just want to mention too, I'm wearing one of my French lighthouse hats here, Le Coubre Lighthouse, one of the ones you sketched and that we visited there. One of the really tall ones that a lot of us climbed. I believe it was 300 feet tall. Yeah, 300 steps. It's about 200 feet tall, 300 steps. But anyway, when we were there, Jim, you'll remember that we met a young photographer who had like a gallery near the lighthouse, Jonathan Geneveau. And I'm going to do one of these events with him, a live Zoom event with Jonathan Geneveau, who does amazing lighthouse photography of that lighthouse and other places. And actually, he's lived a lot of his life in Scotland, so he's done a lot of photography there as well. So that's going to be on November 22nd at 1 p.m., Saturday, November 22nd at 1 p.m. with photographer Jonathan Geneveau from France. But watch for notices on that. I also want to mention that I'm doing an online lecture on Monday, November 3rd at 7 o'clock, and it's about the history of the Flying Santa. We've talked about that in some of these events and certainly on the podcast before, but I'm going to do the history of the Flying Santa to lighthouses, which started in 1929. And that again is Monday, November 3rd. That is not a U.S. Lighthouse Society event. The Ashland, Massachusetts Library is putting that on. And I'm actually going to copy and paste the link for that into the chat. You have to just give me a moment here. I've got it set up here, so I'm just going to grab that. And I just posted the link in the chat. So if you look in the chat, if you want to click on that, it should take you to the page for registering for that event if you want to attend that. So I'm looking forward to that. I've done a few presentations for that library, the Ashland, Massachusetts Library. So that's about the Flying Santa. And also this coming Thursday, October 16th, I'll be speaking at the Portsmouth Public Library, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. If anybody I know there's people in this event right now who are not too far from there. So at the Portsmouth Library at 6 p.m. this Thursday, I'll be speaking about Portsmouth Harbor Lighthouse. And my friend Bob Trapani from the American Lighthouse Foundation will be there. We'll be talking about some of the storm damage that's happened in the last couple of years and what we're trying to do to remedy that. So I wanted to mention those things. And just double checking to make, Marie, who I know well, AKA Patches, said in the chat, great presentation. Thank you for sharing your artwork. And I second that. So again, Jim, this is great. We'll have to do something like this again sometime. And thank you for entertaining us with your stories and your wonderful photos, wonderful drawings.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much. This is fun to do. So, and we got done on time, pretty much.
Well, whatever time we finish is on time, as far as I'm concerned. That's the nice thing about these events and about the podcast too. It's not a set, time frame. It's for as long as they.
If you want to look at Janet Jakubowski's face shot, you can see on the wall behind her a sketch of a lighthouse that I did and gave her.
Okay, that's the one on the cover, isn't it?
There are lighthouse enthusiasts all over the place here.
There are. Is that the same drawing that's on the cover of your book, Jim, on the wall there?
I can't remember what it is. No, I think what it is Comfort.
Oh, Old Point Comfort.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. Yeah, I can see it, Janet. Yeah. Well, again, thank you all. Thank you, Jim, and thank you everybody for attending. We're always happy to see you. Thank you for supporting the U.S. Lighthouse Society, and we'll be seeing you again. I hope you can check out uslhs.org if you're not already familiar with everything the Society does. Check out the tours, preservation grants, and everything else. And I hope you can join us for our next Zoom event, again, November 22nd. Notices will be going out about that. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Have a great rest of the holiday weekend.
Thank you all. Ida says thank you. She's so happy.
Thank you, Jim and Ida. Take care, everybody. Thank you. Have a good night.